working myself back from 2 Achilles injuries and putting the time in. And, being around the facility, being around the city, doing charity work in the city, supporting the Cleveland Browns, hanging out with fans whenever I do see them, being honest, being, the type of person I know I am, and the character would help. And I guess it hasn't, so that's why I say it's personal. So, it is what it is. People have their own opinions, and I can't, there's only so much you can do to change that. So at the end of the day, I just have to continue to just work on it and strive to be better mentally moving forward.
Brutal game for Deshaun Watson. He looked completely awful. He was getting booed out of the stadium by the fans. Todd Monken just crushed him in the post game, saying, hey, if you don't want to get booed, play good football. This is crazy. It looks like Deshaun Watson was being handed the QB1 job, and he just blew it. Welcome to Keep the Vision. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the channel, hit the bell notification, hype the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. Let's get right into it. Deshaun Watson, I don't know what you're going to say to fix this, but you looked awful. You were getting booed. Todd Monken is pissed. Take it away.
I don't know. I got hit, so I was asking guys on the sideline what happened. So I haven't even seen the play actually, so I'm not even sure.
And then that last 4th down, did it get tipped?
Yeah, it got tipped.
Nobody saw this coming. Not the fans in Cleveland, not the analysts on ESPN, and definitely not Deshaun Watson. Because on Saturday, in front of his own home crowd, the $230 million quarterback didn't just lose a football game. He lost the locker room's patience. He lost the fans. And by the time he walked up to that podium, he may have lost the starting job. One question, one answer. That's all it took to blow the whole thing up. But what he said next, that's the part Cleveland won't stop talking about.
And yeah, just move on.
But don't you think, Deshaun, that winning and playing better would eliminate some of that booing?
Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person...
Whoa, wait a minute. I didn't know Deshaun Watson was going to go after the fans. Hold up. This is crazy.
Get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
Does any of that make you regret coming here?
No, I don't regret anything in my life. I think the Lord put me through situations for a reason, so I don't regret anything at all. But, I had different thoughts on how it was going to be, but it is what it is. Sometimes, the tables turn.
Let's set the scene. Shedeur Sanders starts. He moves the offense. He looks composed. Then Watson comes in, and it's rough. Really rough. The offense stalls. The chains don't move. And then, the moment everybody remembers, a 4th down snap gets tipped at the line and dies right there on the field. The boos start rolling in. Not scattered boos, not some guy in section 214 boos. Stadium-wide boos. And head coach Todd Monken didn't sugarcoat it afterward either. His message was blunt. If you don't want to hear boos, go play better football. That's not a coach protecting his guy. That's a coach putting the burden right back on him. Reporters ask him the obvious question. What happened on that 4th down? Watson says he's not even sure. Says he got hit, didn't see the replay, was asking guys on the sideline what went wrong. Okay, fair enough. That happens. But then someone asks him about the boos, and that's when everything changes. Watson doesn't deflect. He doesn't take the humble road. He looks the room dead in the eye and says the boos have nothing to do with his performance. He calls it personal. He calls it disrespectful. That's not even the most shocking part. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. A reporter pushes back respectfully and asks if winning would quiet the noise. And Watson doesn't just answer. He goes somewhere nobody expected. He brings up the day he tore his Achilles on that exact field, and he says the same fan base cheered when he went down. Let that sink in. A guy stands in front of his own team's media and accuses his own fans of celebrating his injury. Now pay attention to this, because whether you think he's right or wrong, one thing is undeniable. That is not the sentence of a guy who sounds locked in and confident about winning a quarterback competition. That's the sentence of a guy who feels like he's already lost something bigger than a game.
I don't know. The only time I feel that energy is when I'm in the stadium or it's on social media. Like I mentioned before, when I'm in public, no one's mentioned anything. So I think that's the only time those people that's holding it in is trying to, disrupt the energy. You know what I'm saying? Because this is social media, players can't respond back. And then in the stadium, players can't respond back. So I get it. I understand it. So it is what it is.
We're going to take two more. Quarterback job is tough enough. Can you defeat that negativity?
I don't know. It's a mental battle every day. I feel like I get more love on road games than I do home games. So if it is my spot and he does make me the name, maybe it's 17 away games then. I don't know.
What about the fact that you guys do have your first 2 are on the road, your first 6 of 9 are on the road? If you win the job, might that work in your favor?
Again, I'm not sure.
Now here's where the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. While Watson is up there talking about disrespect and personal attacks, Shedeur Sanders is doing something nobody expected from a guy fighting for the exact same job. He's defending Watson. Sanders says he doesn't appreciate the boos either, regardless of the competition. He says we're all human beings out there. Think about that for a second. The guy who stands to benefit the most from Watson looking bad is the one standing up for him publicly. Because that's not even the biggest flex here. Everybody's talking about the boos, everybody's talking about the Achilles comment, but almost nobody is talking about what this actually reveals about the quarterback room. Watson himself admitted something telling in that press conference. He said he gets more love on the road than he does at home. He even joked, half-joked, that maybe it'd be better if this was a 17 away game season. A starting quarterback shouldn't be thinking about which stadiums love him more. He should be thinking about winning the job in front of him. And that's exactly what Sanders has been doing, quietly, consistently, while the drama swirls around somebody else. Let's talk about what actually happened on the field, because stats don't have feelings. Sanders started the game. He led the offense on an efficient scoring drive right out of the gate. Clean pocket presence, quick decisions, a touchdown throw that looked effortless. Watson came in relief and never found a rhythm, struggled to complete passes, turned the ball over, and then had that 4th down disaster that sealed the mood in the building. Here's where the media's whole narrative falls apart. For over a year, the story was that Sanders was the project, the guy who needed time, the guy who wasn't ready. But on the one night it mattered most, with Coach Monken sitting right there deciding who leads this team into Week 1, it was the unproven rookie who looked composed, and the $230 million veteran who looked like he was unraveling.
Being away for 2 years and working myself back from 2 Achilles injuries and putting the time in and being around the facility, being around the city, doing charity work in the city, supporting the Cleveland Browns, hanging out with fans whenever I do see them, being honest, being, the type of person that I know I am and the character would help. And I guess it haven't. So that's why I say it's personal. So, it is what it is. People have their own opinions. And I can't, there's only so much you can do to change that. So at the end of the day, I just have to continue to just work on it and strive to be better mentally moving forward.
You talked a lot
That's the last one.
You talked a lot about your mental health is something that you're really proud of despite all the backlash. What, in dark moments like maybe today or in the past, what have you kind of leaned on to help you not fall into like a dark hole or something?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much of like today wasn't really a dark hole. It was just it wasn't something that I didn't expect.
Walk into that stadium and you don't need a press release to know who Cleveland wants under center. The boos weren't random. The cheers for Sanders weren't random either. Fans have sat through years of injuries, off-field distractions, and a contract that's become the punchline of the entire league. And now they're watching a rookie give them something they haven't felt in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope. Not hype, not potential. Actual on-field results. That's why the reaction was so loud. That's why it cut so deep for Watson. Because deep down, everybody in that building already knows what the fans have decided. Coach Monken hasn't named a starter yet. He said as much himself, that at some point, a decision has to be made, and he's not going to paint himself into a corner. But let's be honest about what we just watched. One quarterback stood at that podium and talked about disrespect, personal attacks, and fans celebrating his injuries. The other quarterback stood at that same podium and defended his rival, thanked the fans for showing up, and asked for basic human respect, not just for himself. If you're Todd Monken and you're trying to build a locker room, a program, a franchise identity, which one of those two answers do you want representing your team on national television every single week? Whether you love Shedeur Sanders or you're still skeptical of him, one thing is becoming impossible to deny. Every time people try to write him off, every time they call him a project, a reach, a headline more than a quarterback, he keeps giving people a reason to believe. And after Saturday, after watching one quarterback point fingers at the fans while the other one defended them, that gap in leadership isn't hidden anymore. It's out in the open for everybody to see. The Cleveland Browns don't just have a quarterback competition on their hands. They have a referendum on who they want leading this locker room into the future. And after this weekend, that answer might be a lot clearer than anyone in that building wants to admit. So who do you think should be QB1 heading into Week 1? Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one. Smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.